Question 1. Camels are adapted to living in desert areas. Many camels live in Africa. Part A. About 100 years ago, camels were introduced to Australia. Complete the sentences using the words from the box. Okay, so we've got a number of words there to fill these spaces in the sentences. Now, as before in previous questions, we've got more words than there are spaces available, so we can't use the process of elimination. Let's get started. The camels that were introduced formed a large interbreeding. Now, it's going to be population because the camels are all the same species. As the camels are all the same species, they therefore count as a population. The area that they were introduced into was a new habitat for them. Habitat's the key word we use for where an organism lives, and were well adapted to live there. The community made up of other plants and animals living there started to suffer. I suppose what's key here is the difference between the use of the word community and population. Population is a group of one species, whereas community is all different species living in an area. The camels competed with cattle for biotic factors such as food. Biotic factors means biological related things, living things. So in this case, food would be an example of a biotic factor, whereas the climate or the weather would be an example of an abiotic factor, a non-living thing. So those 5 correct words score the 5 marks available for this question. Part B. One of the camel's adaptations for desert living involves their red blood cells. Table 1 gives information about human and camel red blood cells. You can see table 1 there on the right, with camel and human, and the number of red blood cells per millimetre cubed of blood, and the volume of one red blood cell in arbitrary units. The percentage of blood that is red blood cells is given by this formula. Percentage of blood equals number of red blood cells per millimetre cubed of blood times volume of one red blood cell divided by 10. B part 1. Calculate the percentage of the camel's blood that is red blood cells. Okay, so this is a fairly straightforward calculation, so we just use the data from the table and the equation that we've been given. So, as we can see, the number of red blood cells per milliliter cubed of blood in a camel is 6. So we do 6 times the volume of red blood cell, which is 45. That's 6 times 45. And then we divide that by 10, as we can see from the formula, like so. That then gives us an answer of 27%. So a fairly straightforward calculation. You score 1 mark for the working and 1 mark for the answer. Part 2. If an animal does not drink much water, the percentage of red blood cells can increase. This can cause problems such as blood clotting. In humans, 42% of the blood is red blood cells. Explain how the camel's blood is adapted to the environment that they live in. This is quite a challenging question, isn't it? So we need to consider that fact we've been given and also data we have about the camel's blood. So, first of all, camels live in places where water is not always available. They therefore have a lower percentage of red blood cells and therefore can survive if their blood becomes more concentrated. So it's that idea that we're linking where the camels live to the data we're given about the percentage of red blood cells. So we get 1 mark for saying camels live in places where water is not always available. We then get a 2nd mark for saying they have a lower percentage of red blood cells. And a 3rd mark for saying they can survive if their blood becomes more concentrated. Those 3 points score the 3 marks available for this question.